Hey guys, welcome to Tyson's Fitness Tips Podcast. If you want to lose weight, increase your energy, improve your health and fitness, and look your best, then you have come to the right place. My name is Tyson Brown. I'm a personal trainer, and my job is to help you transform your body by sharing with you the most up-to-date information on health and fitness. I'm going to distill it all down for you into bite-sized actionable steps that you can take immediately to see results quickly. Now, every Tuesday and Thursday, you can expect a brand new episode, which will be a mixture of interviews with top experts from around the world in the fitness space, and as well as solo episodes from myself, sharing with you exactly what action steps you need to take to transform your health, your body, and your life. Also, don't forget to listen all the way to the end of the show, because in the middle, I'm going to share with you a time-saving tip, and it might just be a game changer. I know you're short on time, and this one can save you a lot of time and a lot of energy. So, let's get into the show. What's going on, guys? It is Tyson Brown here, back with another episode of Tyson's Fitness Tips Podcast. And today, I've decided to bring on somebody over from the UK, which we haven't had on the podcast before. So that's a little bit of a gift for you guys. But in all honesty, I wanted to bring on Lawrence because he's also on the podcast in space, and he gets to interview a lot of experts from all over the globe, and I love listening to their podcast. So I thought I would bring on Lawrence, since he's been able to interview experts on all different varieties of subjects, and if I can bring him on here and kind of talk about what he's learned from other people, then that way we can talk to you guys about, like when it comes to diet, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to these certain things where there's so much dogma around all these type of things. And honestly, when we talk to actual experts and what's going on, we can kind of pick out what's bullshit from what's the truth and what actually works and what doesn't work. So, Lawrence, thank you so much for coming to join us today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So, first off, a huge thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm flattered that I am the first person from this tiny, insignificant island to be on the podcast. It's a real honor. When it comes to me and what I do, as Tyson already mentioned, I host a podcast. I host a podcast called SBS Radio. Soon to be branching out into at least one more. I'll probably talk about that in a little bit more detail at some point. But what we aim to do with SBS Radio is try and not take fitness quite so seriously. I look at fitness at the moment, and I looked at fitness when I started the podcast, and it just took itself so seriously. The whole industry took itself immensely seriously, like it was the best thing to happen to the world since insert whatever cliche about sliced bread you want here. But I wanted to provide genuinely useful content to people that's not your typical pseudo fitspirational nonsense, and kind of, as you said, get the experts on, hear their points of view, have genuine discussions about what they do, maybe provide our listeners with a decent amount of knowledge from them, as much as is possible in podcast format. SBS Radio falls under the umbrella of a brand called Shredded by Science. We are rebranding that soon. That's the current name that started way back when it was just an online coaching company targeting young men who wanted to get shredded. Since then, we've evolved into the personal trainer education space, if you will. So we currently offer a year-long online personal training course called the SBS Academy. That's opening again very, very soon. But that, again, we wanted to provide something that is a little different to your typical fitness qualifications, in that the information we give you and the education that we give you is actually relevant to what you're going to be doing as a personal trainer. A lot of the qualifications that you see nowadays are based on information that is at best outdated, and at worst, if you really hunt for the particular organizations, is just flat out wrong. And often it's presented in a way that's not especially applicable to real life. It's taught by people who who maybe don't do a huge amount of personal training, or maybe don't have a huge amount of expertise in the actual field. So to that end, we brought in a team of people who, myself excluded, I don't at all consider myself an expert in many things, if anything at all. I think it would be incredibly remiss of someone aged 25 to consider themselves an expert in just about anything. But we have on our teaching staff, we have people with PhDs, we have people who have taught anything and everything within the personal training space. We have physiotherapists in training. We have a ton of really, really well-educated people. So that's a bit about me. I'm also very conscious that I do ramble a bit, so I'm trying to keep that to a minimum on this.
It's funny, like you talk about how a lot of my audience obviously are just, the general health and fitness public, but they don't understand that when it comes to the personal training side of things, it's kind of, if you don't go through a good personal training, how would I say, like system, which there are a lot that aren't good out there, you're kind of just thrown in the deep waters, and you've got to continually do your own education as a personal trainer, such as myself, to stay up in the latest details, be able to know, what's bullshit, what's true. And because there's so much controversy and stuff out there, it's actually hard just for personal trainers to know if they're giving their clients the right information too. And that's why I like what you guys are doing. Like, you've got experts from different areas, and you're going to be teaching personal trainers, what's up to date at the moment, how to actually, whether someone's an athlete or whether someone's coming back from a rehabilitation or whatever it is, you've got those expertise there to be able to educate a trainer so then they can give their clients the best results. Yeah,
I mean, the thing I would say to your listeners, if they are mostly people who aren't personal trainers, is that what they have to bear in mind when they are looking at fitness professionals, maybe they are people who want a personal trainer or want a coach in some aspect. They're trying to pick between coaches. A lot of the time, the personal trainers don't actually know all that much more than the clients themselves when it comes to what's true and what's not true. Like that sounds very, very bad. I know this, but I'm talking about when it comes to the pseudoscience and the myths that are perpetuated amongst the fitness industry. It's not a slant at personal trainers at all. We are all human, and a lot of the pseudoscience is perpetuated as a result of very, very human biases and thought processes that it's very hard for us to kind of quieten down when we see headlines and we read articles. It's very, very quiet. It's very hard for us to think critically and think skeptically about what we're seeing. Where a personal trainer excels, by and large, should be their ability to understand exercises and understand how to program exercises effectively for the individual that's standing in front of them. And two, they should be up to speed when it comes to things like behavioral psychology, because ultimately what a personal trainer is looking to do is to help someone change their behaviors. Someone's behaviors got them to a certain point that they are unhappy with, to the point that they're hiring a personal trainer. This personal trainer needs to understand enough about behavior change and behavioral psychology to help that person become more aware of their own behaviors and change them in a way that is beneficial for them. So to that end, I actually advise people to steer clear of the personal trainers who focus so much on beating the bullshit and focus so much on dispelling nutrition myths and busting whatever exercise myths you want to do, or rubbishing various training systems, because it's not often the case that these people are so heavily vested in the client that's in front of them versus being on Facebook arguing about whatever comes next. If that makes
absolutely
sense.
There's a lot of that going on at the moment. It's more like a dick measuring contest than anything else.
Precisely.
And so, even though you talked about like personal trainers need to study behaviour, change in psychology, like if I was just let's say like one of the listeners, what if I wanted to try and, because obviously not everyone wants to get a personal trainer, if I wanted to kind of dive into that myself, is there like anything you would recommend starting off? Like is there a couple of books maybe I would start to read, or anything to kind of give me a good grasp to say, hey, I want to start working on my own behavior psychology?
That's a great question. It's not something that I have a huge amount of answers for. I can give you, based on my own personal experience, what was really useful for me. Number one is having like a good circle of friends that I can discuss things very openly with. I find it incredibly useful to talk through my choices, my own behaviors, to reflect on things. I can either do this in, like, I've done this in a journal before, I've tried that sort of thing. I can discuss it with people. That's another way of doing things. But just starting to, if you want to get into behavioral psychology, I think it's really important to understand what behaviors are as well, and what drives our choices. So a book that's very often recommended by people is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I have briefly skimmed through that. Seems perfectly decent book. If you're a fan of podcasts, I am a big fan of a podcast called Freakonomics, which is all about behavioral economics by and large. It's immensely well produced. They're very, very good episodes. And again, they're just incredibly useful when it comes to behavioral psychology. They also have a couple of books under the Freakonomics brand, which are, again, they're very well written. I think, again, increasing one's own just self-awareness. You can do this if mindfulness and meditation is your jam, then go for it. I think that's a really great practice for a lot of people to at least dabble with to some extent. I think it can help a lot of people increase self-awareness. But I think if you want to start learning about behavioral psychology to the point where you want to change your own behaviors, it first needs to start with just identifying your own behaviors. So have a look at the choices you make day to day. Maybe have a look at the thoughts that arise day to day. And this is something that meditation can help with really well, because it kind of teaches you to detach a little bit from the immediate response to something that happens to you. So let's say that a really easy example of this is road rage. Let's say that you're driving around and someone cuts you up, or cuts you off at a junction or whatever, or does something to aggravate you. Your immediate reaction is probably to beep your horn, to swear at them, to gesticulate wildly at them. What mindfulness stuff and meditation practice ultimately teaches you to do a little bit is to, instead of be consumed completely by that initial reaction, just take a step back from it and just observe that reaction has happened. And then you can decide, is that a good thing to pursue, or is that not necessarily the best thing to pursue in this particular time? And then you can make a choice about it, and make a choice being aware of what your reaction was initially. And I think this can apply really, really well to fitness, certainly in terms of aspects like what you choose to eat at mealtime, sort of thing. So again, you may get home after a really long day at work, and your immediate reaction may well be, oh, I've not eaten since lunch. I'm really, really hungry, getting to the point where I'm kind of hangry. There's some food in the cupboard that I can chuck in a bowl really quickly. Maybe it's not the best thing for me, but I'm super hungry and it's really quick. And otherwise I'm going to have to cook, and I really can't be bothered to do that. So I'm going to pick the thing that's maybe not the most conducive to what I want to achieve with my fitness goals and whatever else. Being aware of that as an immediate reaction to you getting home hungry, you can then make a better choice potentially. If you've observed that choice, you've observed that reaction, you can then go, maybe I know that this is my immediate response, but ultimately this is going to be more beneficial for me, as opposed to being just all consumed by that initial response. And then if it keeps happening over and over again, then you can potentially put in place some strategies like prepping meals at the weekend, so you don't get home hungry and have to prepare a bunch of food in order for it to maybe like fit your macros or fit whatever meal plan you're on at the time. You can just take something out of the fridge, very quickly heat it up or very quickly cook it, and you're not going to be reaching for the thing that is immediate, but maybe not so good for you.
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's actually, it's a really good point. I like how you made that, like a bit of an example at the end, because a lot of people, they do that. They work long hours, or something happens to the office and they've got to stay longer, and then they make those poor decisions at night time. But then when you said, understand your behaviour, so, four out of 5 times the night I'm coming home late and I'm either binging on food or eating something like shit. When you catch that behaviour, like I'm doing this constantly, you can go, okay, next week I'm going to do some meal prep, or I'm going to, maybe I'll order some of those easy muscle meals or whatever they are, but you have something in place so when that tendency comes up, you can replace it with a better behaviour.
Everyone does it as well. Like if you notice yourself doing this, the other thing that the fitness industry is really terrible for is allowing people to beat themselves up about their choices. And if you notice yourself doing this is nothing to be ashamed of at all. Like I said right at the very beginning, a lot of this stuff is down to very, very human choices and very human thought processes and just kind of human nature. We all do this thing. It's called hyperbolic discounting, if you want to give it its technical name. And what this means is essentially you discount the value of things that happen later in time than things that are happening or that are possible right now. So the classic example of this is the famous experiments where people are like, you take some children, not literally, that's criminal, but you get some children in a room and you say, right, there's a sweet on the table in front of you or a chocolate bar or whatever. You can either eat this now or in 15 minutes you can have 2. So, and most children will just have the one chocolate bar. The other one is you say to someone, right, I will give you 10 quid right now, or if you wait an hour, I'll give you 15. It's a case of most people will just go, right, the quid, by the way, for Australians, I have no idea if that's a common thing. It's pounds. So $10 now, $15 in an hour's time. Most people will take the $10 and run. Thank you very much. So again, we discount the value of things that are going to happen later on. So again, relating that back to the example I gave about prepping meals, you discount the value of your actions later on in time. So ultimately, you taking the time to prepare a meal that's good for you, that fits your macros, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be an immensely valuable thing for you to do. But because it's happening later in time, you don't give it as much importance as your immediate needs, which are, I'm hungry, give me food now.
Yeah.
And again, it's why people don't file their tax return on time, because they put it off for ages and ages and ages. They go, it's fine. It's not as valuable to me right now because, the deadline's ages away. And then there's a mad rush last minute. They don't do everything in time. It's a very human trait. So don't be disheartened if you notice this in yourself.
Absolutely, and like you said, everyone does it, including the trainers and including all the experts. Like,
oh yeah,
we are just human, and so being able to do that, I think you've covered some really good points just so far in regards to that. You've got your recommended Freakonomics, a good book, The Power of Habit. Doing some, I think meditation is a really, really good place for people to start. There's a lot of apps out there that are free that they can download. Simple, easy 10-minute meditation. And also one other thing I would recommend you guys do is, if you do like your books, even read a little bit on Stoicism, because that is also talking about putting off immediate pleasure for pleasure in the future, which you think about, would my 80-year-old self look back at now and say, I'm glad you had the cookie type of thing, even though you wouldn't always think about that. It's delaying that gratification response right now.
Stoicism is interesting, and I know I personally have taken a lot from it. I haven't recommended it explicitly because I don't like recommending principles for people to live their life by. And ultimately, I think that's what Stoicism boils down to. It's what any school of philosophy, it's what a lot of religions boil down to as well. Ultimately, they're a set of principles to help you guide your life. I think if you're interested in that sort of thing, then by all means, go and read the Marcus Aurelius Meditations, read whatever Stoic literature you want. But I think also expose yourself to other, let's say, guiding principles as well. I think it's important to pick and choose the things that you want to live your life by. I think it's incredibly important for you to figure out kind of what principles and what values and what guidelines you want to live your life by. And if you want to if you want to live your life by a completely different set of principles to Stoicism or to anyone else, then you go for it. I think that's one of the wonderful things about the freedom we have in today's society is you can, by and large, provided they're not illegal or going to get you in serious trouble, you can by and large pick and choose how you live your life. And I think that's really important for a lot of people to realize that they don't necessarily need to be constrained by anything. I think what is really useful for pretty much everyone when it comes to Stoicism is the idea of only controlling what you can control and only bothering about what you can control. And I think this is an immensely important thing when it comes to fitness, because we see so many examples of people on social media who ultimately have a completely different lifestyle to us, but yet are seen as an example of how we should live, how we should eat, how we should train. And I think it's often very, very disheartening for people to see that and then to look at their life and go and compare, if you will. I think it's incredibly important to realize that how this other person lives their life is completely outside of your control. You have a lot of control over a lot of things in your life. And I think that's something that most people should be more grateful for and implement in their own kind of fitness journey.
Alrighty guys, we are halfway through the episode, so you know what that means? It is time for another episode of Tyson's Tips. And today, since we're talking about behavioural change, what I want to do is share with you guys a simple tip you can do every single day to start working on your behaviour. And that's simply writing down when bad things happen. So whether you overreact to something, whether you binge eat, whatever it is, after that happens, when you're like, yeah, I feel guilty, write it down, keep it in a journal and think, okay, what caused this today? Why did I do this? What was the response? Was it because I was stressed from work? Was it because I didn't have enough time? When you start to become aware of your behavior every single day, the more you become aware, the easier it's going to be to change. So don't always beat yourself up for it. Instead, try and learn from each experience, note it down, and you're going to notice habits that come up. Are you overeating every single night? Or it could be anything. Are you drinking too much alcohol? Whatever it is, start to note down your behaviors, because when you know them down, that's when you can take action. That is your tip of the day. Now let's get back into the episode. I think you're absolutely right, and I also think this is going to kind of take us down the next subject where you talk about, you've talked to a lot of experts, and not all of them lift weights, not all of them do a lot of cardio, some of them could be marathon runners, some of them could lift weights, and they all have their own different, they live by their own different principles. I'm rambling. And, so for you, so being able to interview all those people, and when it comes to just improving your overall health and fitness, we can't say there is one specific thing that everybody must do, right? Like if you don't like running, you don't have to run. If you don't like there are so many things out there that we think, like, we get kind of attached. Every time we used to say, people used to come to me and say, I hate cardio, I hate running. And you've got so many other options out there. Or, people say, I hate lifting barbells or dumbbells, but you've got other types of resistance exercises out there. So is there anything that you would recommend that we all should be doing when it comes to health and fitness? Or is it going to be, like you said, tailored towards each person and what they've got to go out and kind of find what they enjoy?
I think that is a dichotomy that possibly shouldn't exist. So the idea that there are things that everyone must do, and the other side of that being that everyone should be able to do exactly only the things that they love and what they want to do. I think that most issues I fall somewhere pretty much straight down the middle. Like politically, I'm pretty much straight down the middle on most things when it comes to, I can see both sides of things usually fairly well. So with this, I think that you've got to figure out why you're doing this fitness thing. For a lot of people, certainly in the online fitness sphere, it has a lot to do with either a pursuit of bodybuilding in some form, so a very physique-oriented pursuit, or a strength sport-oriented pursuit. Personally, I look at things more from a longevity and a health perspective, by and large. I think that if you are looking for a very narrow goal from your fitness, whether that be like maximal strength if you're a power lifter or a strongman, or somebody or an Olympic weightlifter, somebody who competes in a sport that is to do with lifting weights and or looking good, then I think there are certain things that when it comes to it, you're probably just going to have to do, even if you don't like it a huge amount, because the sport dictates the goal, if you will. So, for example, a bodybuilder at some point, if they want to do well at their sport, is going to have to diet, and it's going to have to effectively starve themselves for 4 or 5 months whilst also continuing to lift weights. That is an inevitability if you are a bodybuilder and you want to compete at a relatively high level and do relatively well. Of course, you could just continue to lift weights, not diet at all, and then come showtime, you put your tan on, you shave everything, you put your gold thong on and strut about the stage looking significantly fatter than everyone else on stage. You can do that if you want. I've seen people do that, and hats off to them. Similarly, if you're a power lifter, at some point you're going to have to get comfortable doing single repetitions with an especially heavy weight for you, something that is near to what your limit is for that particular exercise. However, if you are somebody who doesn't necessarily want to compete in a particular sport, maybe your goal can be summed up in, I want to look good naked, or I want to be able to play with my kids when I'm 50, 60, 70, etc. I still want to be able to play football in the park with them. Then I think that you are much less limited in your choices. I think you have much more scope to do what you want to do. And I think that's a really important consideration for a lot of people is the why. Like, why are you doing this fitness thing? Because I think so many people are so influenced by what they see that filters down from the bodybuilding industry into the more general fitness community. And don't get me wrong, I think that bodybuilding has been incredible for the spread of popularity when it comes to people taking up fitness, because for whatever reason, a lot of people they're really turned on by the idea of looking really good naked. I don't ask me to explain why that is. I'm not that good at psychology, but for some people, for some reason, that seems to attract a lot of people. So I think that's been a really good thing when it comes to getting people in the gym lifting weights, looking to reap the benefits of lifting weights. But I think what a lot of the information that filters down just isn't relevant to general gym goers who want to look better naked, who maybe they want to improve their blood pressure, they want to improve their ability to walk up the stairs without feeling tired, they want to be able to like bend over and pick something up if they drop it off the floor. Like, I think a lot of people and a lot of personal trainers forget that some people just have these really simple, basic goals when it comes to their fitness. Like, when I'm 80, I want to be able to still go for a walk with my dog, sort of thing. It's to that end, you should probably do something that challenges your heart in the form of cardiovascular exercise, whether that be running, whether that be cycling, swimming, hiking, whatever you want. Something that gets you a bit out of breath. And I think something that challenges your muscles and your joints and your bones in some respect is, again, probably a good idea. Whether that be weightlifting, whether that be powerlifting, whether that be just going to the gym and lifting weights, whether that be body weight exercises, whether that's climbing, whether that's yoga, Pilates, something that challenges your strength to some degree. I think both of those things are really important when it comes to exercise for general health, longevity, and I think those are borne out in the research as well. A lot of the science points to a combination of both of those things being really good for people in some way or another. I think the other thing that people who want just general health benefits from training is to look at the research on what are called the blue zones. So the blue zones are the places in the world. There are, I think, 5 or 6 places with the highest life expectancy. I know Okinawa in Japan is one, and I know that I think it's somewhere in Sardinia is another one. There's a few places dotted around the world who all have really high life expectancies. And look at the commonalities amongst the way that they live their lives. Now, a lot of this research is what is called epidemiological. So it's not especially good at being able to tell us that this lifestyle has caused this life expectancy. We can't do that. But then with research like this, we can't really set up an experiment whereby we can determine with a good amount of certainty that this particular lifestyle has caused this life expectancy. But it's a good idea to have a look and see, this might lead to this. I think this is probably a good idea to do. And it's things like regular activity, regular but moderate alcohol consumption, which is something that a lot of people are very torn on. Things like basing most of your meals around some form of plants. That's not to say that they are vegetarian or vegan necessarily. Most of their diet comes from plants, but they still eat animal products. They still eat fish. They still eat eggs and dairy, just in moderation. A lot of them, I believe, have a very strong kind of family tie. So they eat a lot of their meals as a community. They have a very strong sense of community, and they have, generally speaking, quite low levels of stress for whatever reason. So again, I think that's something to look at.
Yeah, I think when we talk about health and fitness, we always think about the exercise and the diet and side of things. But one thing you brought up there, and we kind of touched on it earlier, was the relationship side of things too. So the people who have obviously lived the longest, they kind of had that feeling of they were still needed in a way, or they had those close relationship ties. And it was, one of the reasons why people, when you have, how do I explain it? Like, when you're not lonely, when you have people who you are around all the time, it changes the way your happiness, like their stress is down. They've just got other people around them, and that's a big perspective of health and fitness, because we're not just looking at the fitness side of things. Like you said, we're looking at longevity, health too.
I think if you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense to my mind. I'm not an evolutionary biologist or anything, but if you look at the human being in relation to other animals, like when it comes to our ability to survive in the wild, on our own, we suck. Like, we have no natural armor. We have no claws to defend ourselves with. We have no, like, razor-sharp teeth. Our eyesight is pretty terrible. Our sense of smell is appalling. We can't run very fast. We can't jump very high. We can't swim very well. We can do all of these things to a point. But where humans really excel is their ability to be social and their ability to build units of other human beings to then accomplish things that other animals do relatively well on their own, but we do them really, really well as a group. So I think just from that perspective, I think that almost underlines the importance of a good social life. And I'm not saying that you have to go out drinking and clubbing with your mates every weekend to have a good social life. That, I think, is certainly my idea of a nightmare. I can't stand things like that. I would much rather sit somewhere with a few of my very close friends, some good food, maybe a few drinks, and have great conversations. Like, that's my idea of social. Other people's idea of social may be a little more hedonistic, and that's completely okay. I think that whatever social life floats your boat, you go live that social life, but just don't underestimate the importance of a social life when it comes to your health. And I think that's another thing that bodybuilding kind of gets wrong.
Exactly.
When it comes to health, because so many of the classic bodybuilding lifestyle choices completely alienate you from what is quote unquote normal in terms of the way that most humans live their life nowadays. And if you want to be that abnormal, cool, go for it. I'm not going to tell you otherwise, but bear in mind that your social circle will probably very, very quickly become just bodybuilders, people who are okay with your choices to noddy out, to not drink a huge amount, to spend an inordinate amount of time in the gym. And I think that it's great to feel a sense of community with people who are doing the same sort of thing as you. I think that's one reason why CrossFit has become so popular. Is one reason why things like Weight Watchers and Slimming World are so popular, because they have regular, like, community meetings. They foster a sense of community amongst their members. But I think it's very important to just put all of that into perspective as well. Like, do I really like these people that I'm around, or do I like them just because they're doing this bodybuilding thing and I've not really got anyone else to talk to, and I can't go out to eat because I'm a bodybuilder, and I can't really go out to a bar and meet people because, again, my gains. So
yeah, luckily I got a feeling that a lot of people who listen to my podcast, especially because I'm not a bodybuilder, a lot of people aren't in that realm. But like you said, like, a lot of the things trickle from the bodybuilding world into the health and fitness world, and that's what the problem. Like, there's been good, but there's also been the bad side too, like we talk about.
Absolutely.
So
I think social life is very important.
Exactly. And going back to, like, you said everyone should obviously improve their cardio in some way, do some type of resistance training, look at the Blue Zone research. But I like to give people some practical stuff to go away with. So if you were to have just a person who wants to look good naked, just in general, and you said, okay, for a recommendation, just for the average person, what would you recommend in a week-to-week basis? Let's say they haven't got any injuries, they just want to go into the gym, let's say they've got 45 minutes free to an hour free in a week, like a day type of thing. What would you recommend to the average person?
So I think the first thing to consider, I think looking week to week is useful for a lot of people, but I think it's also important to take a step up, not back, take a step up and view things from kind of an elevated perspective and a bit more kind of big picture. And I think there is a Dan John quote, Dan John being a really, really great strength coach, personal trainer. He's
been on this one.
Just full of wisdom. Oh, excellent. So people would have heard of Dan John then. There is a quote from him, I'm going to butcher it, but the premise is that he would much rather someone do 3 easy workouts every week for years with 1 to 5 kind of hard workouts sprinkled in amongst them, than have someone try and do 3 hard workouts a week and burn out really quickly. So the most important thing with any fitness pursuit is consistency of effort. And I think that that's something that people just have to be super realistic with when it comes to just how much effort can they put in consistently. And I think that this is something that even fitness professionals struggle with when it comes to their own expectations of themselves. So to people listening and thinking, oh, I haven't got time to do X, Y, Z, like, don't worry. We all have that as well. I think my go-to for a lot of people is to be doing some form of structured weight training roughly 3 times a week. You can probably get away with 2 times a week as well, but 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what you do in your sessions, is probably like a baseline for most people when it comes to weight training. I then think that some form of daily activity is fine. I think that's usually very useful for people, and this can be anything from a lot of people have like Fitbits and they like to hit a certain number of steps per day. That's an incredibly useful thing for people. But again, I think a lot of people would really benefit from just going for a walk every day. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, just 30 to 60 minutes of walking per day. And ideally this is walking outside as well. There is a decent amount of research on what is called green exercise. That is exercising outside in nature, if you will. And it has been shown to have pretty significant effects on your mental health as well as your physical health. We all know that walking can and does improve your physical health. So that, I think, is a baseline for most people. And then find something that you enjoy doing that elevates your heart rate a bit. I think a really great option for a lot of people is find like a group sport or a sport to play with like your significant other. This could be tennis, badminton, like 5-a-side football, or soccer if you're from Australia. Anything that involves you just playing some sport for a bit, once, maybe twice a week, but once a week is probably fine as well. That also nails the social life aspect of things as well. You're having fun with other people doing something that elevates your heart rate. If you're not a fan of stuff like that, or maybe you don't have the opportunity to do that near you, then that's also fine. You can do other forms of cardiovascular exercise. That's cool. I'm not against cardio.
Well, like you say,
so that,
you said group sport, but there's also, there's the, if you are someone who likes to go to the gym, you've got the group exercise stuff too that you can do. You spin classes, body attack, body pump, like it's building that community still when you're still getting your heart rate up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I would be aware of with classes, especially like the body pump, body attack, things like that, is to be aware of just how, like, your experience level relative to what the class is asking of you. Because if you're not an experienced weightlifter, gym goer, whatever, and you are going to a class that's asking you to do some relatively complex movements with added weight, let's say it's a class that involves you holding a barbell for most of it, then in a class format you may well not get the movement coaching that you need, because most of us need to be taught how to do a bunch of the movements that you're going to be required to do, and just given like the class size and the number of instructors, it's unlikely that you'll be able to be taught that to the level that you need to do it safely, do it comfortably, do it effectively, things like that. I think spin classes for a lot of people are really great. That's a really nice low impact type of thing. So you're more than welcome to go do those as well. In terms of structuring your weight training, I realized I glossed over that. I think if you're doing something 2 to 3 times a week, then there are 2 approaches that I would potentially take to this. One is to I'll stick to training 3 times a week. If you're training twice a week, I would train your full body every single session. So some form of squatting movement. So whether that be like a back squat, a front squat, a leg press, a goblet squat, whatever sort of squat you want to do. Single leg squat is also a great choice for a lot of people if you can stomach them. Some form of hip hinge movement. So something involving your posterior chain in your lower body. So deadlifts of all variations, hip thrusts of any and all variations. Those are your main kind of hip hinge movements. Then some form of upper body press. I think for most people, if you can do it comfortably, some form of incline press on an incline bench hits a good balance of your shoulder muscles and also your chest muscles for a lot of people. And then some form of rowing and pulling exercise. So like a bent over row and a lat pull down type thing. Yeah. For this, like if you're training that little, I tend to go with kind of big but boring for the main kind of bulk of the workout. And then if you've got some time at the end, I think it's a really great idea to just play around a bit, like string some exercises together, maybe do like a challenge at the end of your workout. If that's something that's going to keep you motivated and keep it fun for you, then I think that's a really great thing to put in for a lot of people. If you're training 3 times a week, you can adopt the full body approach as well. I would probably vary the rep ranges that you use, again, just to avoid monotony. So let's say on like a Monday, you do stuff that's in like the 12 to 15 rep range. On Wednesday, you then do stuff that's in like the 8 to 12 rep range. And on Friday, you do something that's in maybe the 6 to 8 rep range, just so you're varying your intensity throughout the week. So you're varying the loads that you're lifting, and then you look to progress week on week. So adding reps, adding sets, adding weight, whatever form of progression is going to best suit you and your goals, and also your time frame as well. Or if you lead like a particularly high stress lifestyle, and training your full body 3 times a week is not something that you can deal with from like a stress perspective, because we do have to remember that weight training is quite stressful for a lot of people, not only in terms of going to the gym and maybe psyching themselves up for something, but also just in terms of the load that's placed on the body. It does activate a lot of the same things that high levels of stress activate, so it can compound. One thing that I would potentially recommend doing is coming up with 4 workouts, so 2 upper body and 2 lower body workouts. Name them A, B, C, and D, alternating in order. So let's say workout A is an upper body workout, workout B is a lower body workout, C upper body, D lower body again. Week and then like flip the structure every 2 weeks. So week 1 you maybe do workouts A, B, and C, and then week 2 you do workouts B, C, and D. So effectively each body part is being trained 3 times every 2 weeks.
Oh, that's a cool one.
Yeah, it's something that has worked quite well for quite a lot of my clients when it comes to their structure. A lot of them, I have one in particular that really works well with this. She works in a hospital, so works shifts, and it gives her enough of a stimulus, because we know now from a lot of the research that training once a week is still good. It's not at all that training each body part once a week is a bad thing. A lot of people in fitness would make you believe that if you only train your body parts once a week, then that's terrible for you. No, it's not. You're still training your body parts.
You're still in the gym doing something. Jesus. Exactly.
You're still in the gym doing something, but a little bit more may well be better for you.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that we are training everything 3 times a week. We're not training it twice a week. We're training it 3 times every 2 weeks. So a little bit between. Cool. And it helps with the monotony, because you still got 4 workouts every week's a little bit different. So that's generally what I'd recommend for a lot of people starting off. But then at the same time, don't be afraid to change things. If you're doing this thing and it's a real struggle every time you go to the gym and you're like, I really don't want to do this, then just change something, because this stuff should enhance your life.
Yeah. And like Dan John said, it's better to have that consistency to be able to go to the gym instead of going, fuck, I don't want to do this workout again, or if you don't have that motivation to do it and you're just going to drop it. Like, there's no point having the perfect workout program if you can't go and do it, or if you don't actually enjoy it. If you enjoy coming in, doing, whether it just be upper body focus or whatever it is, if you're coming into the gym and you're doing something, at the end of the day, you're coming in and you're doing something, and that's still going to help with your health and fitness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Look, Lawrence, I know it's coming up on time because you've got to run. So basically, before we go, I just want to go over some really quick key points to make sure I capture everything today, which is actually interesting because, I decided to bring you on for another reason, and we just dove deep into a rabbit hole that I never looked at, which was really cool, and it's discovering, it's about, but I think it's really important, it's looking at your behaviour first of all. And so, looking at, obviously we are all human, but when you become aware of the behaviours that you have and the tendencies you tend to do throughout the day, every single day, when you step back and you're able to catch yourself and you're able to change those certain behaviours, you don't have to focus on a certain diet or focus on a certain exercise, but when you focus on actually just changing the behaviour to make it more beneficial to your health and fitness, that can just lead up to huge changes overall.
Yeah, that's basically it. I think so many people get bogged down in the science. They get bogged down in the details of these things, and they completely ignore the fact that it's human behavior that gets us to do these things. And if somebody is struggling with the human behavior bit, then the details don't necessarily matter quite so much.
Absolutely. And I think that's what, I think at the end of the day, guys, if you go back and you focus on that first before looking for anything else, you're going to benefit in the long run a lot more. And it's not going to happen overnight either. You can't say, oh, this is the behaviour, I'm going to change it straight away. It's going to take time for you to become aware of it, because and it's going to come back sometimes because we've got ingrained behaviours, and there's going to be new behaviours that pop up in the future. But when you become more aware of what's going on, then you can start taking control.
Absolutely.
And then obviously from the behaviour side of things, then just in general, if we want to just look good naked, we need to do some type of resistance training at least 2 to 3 times a week, is what you would say would be the best thing. And then just get that heart rate up on the other days. Go for a walk, try and do some sport, or like I said, just some other type of cardio exercise. I actually enjoy my cycle classes, so that's what I enjoy. Everyone's got their own thing. And also, don't forget the social side of things, because that is we're talking about health and fitness here. And the social side of things and your mindset still falls under that health category.
And then the other thing, I would go into this in more detail, but again, I'm pressed for time.
Yep.
Find a way of eating that gives you sufficient calories, but not too many, that nourishes you in whatever ways you want to be nourished. And that if you want to get good naked, probably gives you enough protein. And this is going to fall somewhere between, if you take your body weight in kilograms, times that by probably about 1.5 to 2.5, which is a massive range, but somewhere in there, you're probably okay.
Yeah. Look, I did want to talk about the diet at the end of the day, Lawrence, but a lot of people, they know the truth. Don't eat shit all the time. And it's easy to say, it's harder to do, but you do know, eat your fruits and vegetables, eat your lean meats, make sure it's good quality food, and you're going to look better overall. You can't be eating pizza and cookies and all the other shit and expect that you're going to look great. No matter what you see on Instagram. Don't believe that bullshit.
Excellent.
Okay, Lawrence, thank you so much for coming on. Before you go, can you please tell us where we can find more about you? Because I know you said you're doing a little bit of rebrand, so do we still look at shreddedbyscience.com, or do we go somewhere else?
Our website is shreddedbyscience.com. If you want to find our podcast, we're now on Spotify, which is really cool.
Oh, sweet.
So if you go on Spotify and search for Shredded by Science Radio, that'll pop up there. We are on Instagram at Shred by Science. Unfortunately, Shredded by Science was taken, so we had to do Shred by Science. And same on Facebook and YouTube. If you go youtube.com/shredbyscience and facebook.com/shredbyscience as well, if you want to find more about us.
Excellent. Guys, I'm going to have all that in the show notes in the podcast, so make sure, go back over, listen to this again, download Freakonomics on podcast because it's bloody awesome. I love that podcast. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, make sure to send me a message, tyson@tysonbrown.com.au, and I will speak to you next time. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Now, I've got a special gift for you. If you want to learn how I managed to lose 10 kilos and keep it off, then I've got the perfect treat for you. I've got a free intermittent fasting cheat sheet that I share on my website that shows you exactly how to diet effortlessly with intermittent fasting and fit it into your busy lifestyle. And more importantly, this is the exact guide that I follow every single day that allowed me to lose 10 kilos of body fat and keep it off 4 years later. So head on over to www.tysonbrown.com.au and pick up your free cheat sheet today and learn how to fit intermittent fasting into your life and diet effortlessly. Once again, that's www.tysonbrown.com.au. Opt in for the free cheat sheet and I'm going to send it straight to your inbox for free. Until next time, speak to you guys then.